Hey, this is a little ways out, but I want to let you know the show is unfortunately going to end when we run out of R.E.M. albums to talk about. That will be the end of this show. However, we will finish everything up with another Letters episode. We're going to be recording that toward the end of September. That is the plan right now. So if you have any letters, any responses to things that we have said, stories about R.E.M. and the way that it fits into your life, consider going over to Duckfeed.tv/contact and sending those in so we can feature them in our farewell celebration. Once again, that is Duckfeed.tv/contact. Thank you.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to File Underwater, where we try to convince you that R.E.M. is America's hottest adult contemporary band.
It's summertime hot. Here we are talking about the album Reveal, which was released, strangely for them, in May of 2001. Normally their albums come out either in the fall or the kind of early spring. They're a cold weather band.
Mm-hmm. But now they're the boys of summer are back. The crack of the bat. R.E.M. has taken the field.
Hope summer's eternal.
Here comes Mills up to the tee. And so let's talk about Reveal. My last R.E.M. album.
Dun,
dun, dun, dun, dun. This was produced with Pat McCarthy again. We talked about last time.
Yeah.
He is around.
Yeah, and it was produced and recorded kind of intentionally to be very, let's find a neutral term for this, uniform.
Yes, they made it to be the kind of album I don't like. Even though I do like this album, but they were like, oh, what is the type of R.E.M. album that Gary doesn't like? Let's do that.
Yeah, and so let's take a moment here to say that an intentional decision doesn't mean it's a good decision.
Yes.
I very much like this album, but it's not going to play for everybody. And a lot of the reviews of the album commented specifically on this, that it does kind of fade into the background and doesn't grab you, even in the way that certain songs on Up do, right?
I think that yes. Yeah. And it's hard for me to think of that as a positive.
Right.
Like, this thing Stipe said that is by design. I like it when I can find an album that I can put on and leave on through dinner or throughout a party. That is one of the most damning things I think you can say about art. Like, there's a difference between like ambient music, that's designed to be non-obtrusive.
Right.
But that's not, to me, that's just not pop music.
Right.
Like it is very weird to do rock or pop music and have the idea be you don't notice it.
Right.
I know that's not what's going on here, but it always feels like that's the kind of thing people say. Like a lot of the things that you can say about Reveal feel like apologist kind of material. So like something like that sounds like something you would say after an album turned out to be boring when it wasn't intended to be boring. Or another thing that's said about this album a lot is like, oh, and this is also true of Up, is like it rewards like repeated listens.
Yeah, that's always code to me.
Yes,
a little bit. I agree. That is true in a lot of my own personal experience. I don't think that should be like the prerequisite. Because what that does is it put the onus on the listener to say, hey, you aren't working hard enough.
Yes. I read this somewhere and I can't remember where, but it's like, it's code for the people who made this couldn't have made something this bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like this has too much pedigree to actually be bad. So it has to be something that like you have to work for really hard.
Yeah.
It can't just be like a little bit, underwhelming, which is like, as much as I do like this album, like underwhelming is a good word for it to my mind. Yeah. I get underwhelmed or whelmed often, as opposed to getting kind of overwhelmed or like excited.
Right. Yeah. And I think that they maybe kind of fail at what they set out to do, because there are songs with, different and good ideas. There are strange songs on this and ones that I think stick out and shine very brightly. The way they accomplish that kind of like slow fade, and so this is something I mentioned in the last episode, is that they cease either beginning or ending a song at the moment of highest interest and feel like structurally they have to, work up from nothing, build out each individual part of a song, let it rise to this climax where everything can express itself as clearly as it does, and then kind of like let it peter out so they can build up from nothing on the next one. I feel like there's way too much lift off and, wheels down on this.
100%. That's very astute. And the way that this articulates itself to me is that I don't remember that I like a song until I'm a minute into it.
Right.
Like I will hear a song like, and that's going to tie into another kind of flaw to this, which is I think that like lyrically and kind of subject matter wise, I think it's pretty weak. So you look at something like Beat a Drum, which it's is a name that is hard for me to like attach something to.
Right.
And I actually do like that song quite a bit.
Yeah.
It just begins like 4 or 5 other songs on Reveal until it gets to the part that I like.
Right.
So it does build up that kind of, it's a lot of rising action in story terms. Like it's like expositional.
Yeah.
It's an expositional album. It's like, it's like season 10 of The Simpsons too, where it's like a lot of the things I think are going to be real problems with R.E.M. in the next album are on display here. They're just not as bad.
Right.
And that is such a, like, it's true of this. It is so bad and around the sun. It's just going to get way, way worse before it gets better.
Yeah. Like all of those songs spend their entire time rising, but they never actually hit a
They never
height.
get anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those songs they Q-Tip never shows up. Like, Q-Tip's going to get here. Like, the classic R.E.M. album at Camp Q-Tip.
Yeah. And if it sounds like I'm being harsh, I probably am. Like, this is an album that has very fundamental problems to it. It's hard for me to say this isn't a great album. I mean, great might be a little bit strong. This holds a special place in its pantheon because this was the first new R.E.M. album that came out after I had really started paying attention to them. Like, I anticipated this. I watched the like video premiere reveal where the entire thing was their unveiling of this, where they were, like talked about the entire production of Imitation of Light before showing you the final thing. Like, I was very much like wrapped up and like listening to this when it came out. And like, this was, fuck, why am I writing like headlines? This was like a revelation for me,
Right. Yeah. And and at this point I had moved on largely. Yeah. Even R.E.M. that now I've grown to appreciate more was, less appealing to me than a lot of like indie stuff I was getting into.
Yeah.
At the time this came in, like
2001 and early 2000s were a great time for that stuff anyway. Like, that was a tremendous time in music to be fixated on this.
Yes. Yeah. It just, I hadn't moved on to like new rock and stuff, which is part of the reason why this had sold so poorly, but I was just not as into what they were putting down.
Yeah.
A lot of those structural problems, though, because I'm coming at it in the context of this podcast and stuff, do stand out to me. I have negative nostalgia, but relatively positive in comparison re-listening. And it sounds like it's probably, if not the opposite, at least very, very, very positive nostalgia for you, and then probably slightly less positive re-listening. Because were you cognizant of those problems when you first listened to it? Like,
no,
were
I was nowhere near that critical back then.
Yeah.
I was 14 when this came out.
Right. So it's hard to see kind of structural issues like that when you're enamored, Yeah.
I just, for me, this is either a superpower or a critical failing for me, where like I can acknowledge the like the shitty stuff while still holding on, to that other stuff. So like the good stuff is not tarnished by noticing the ways that this falls down structurally, especially in compared to a close look at other things. One doesn't wash out the other, but it does. It just, you have to sit through the failings. Yep.
So you're never not going to go through it. It doesn't mean I don't think this is a good album. It's just like, to get to the good stuff, like I have to sit through some kind of bad stuff. It doesn't mean I'm still sitting through it. Like that's very similar to something you said when we did our Metal Gear Solid 2 episode, Watch Out for Fireballs. And like, do you just like go into like a fugue state during that? Like, how do you live during the period where you're engaging with things that are bad?
I wake up 2 blocks over and covered in blood.
And just like, wow, the ending of Metal Gear Solid 2 is great. At the end, or just like, and you just, wake up the next day and like, with wearing your pants backwards on the roof, and you're like, man, Reveal is awesome. And
Oh, Chorus in the Ring is underrated.
Yeah, it's like you're having blackouts.
Yeah, no, I'm there and I'm engaged, but I think that there is this weird compartmentalization that happens where like I'm experiencing the thing in the moment and it's in this like little sandbox before it is sifted later. And I just realized I described my mind like it was a fucking litter box. Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like a sandbox in like the software kind of sense. Oh, okay. like a place where things go to be looked at and then and then separated, right?
Mm.
So and I generally don't feel things very strongly in the moment unless it is like explicitly something that is transcendent that breaks that.
Yeah. I mean, so. I guess I can see that. What it ends up being for me is like, I am with music specifically, I tend to be fairly active about it. Not always in every element, so it's not always I'm not always paying super close attention to lyrics, but it's very hard for me not to be like engaged at any given moment. It's not just about the reflection.
Yeah.
So it's about the process. Like, what is the value proposition of listening to Reveal again? Like, I'm going to get those parts that I love. But there's going to be some parts that I don't like. And there are tons of albums I just like front to back.
Yeah.
That I don't have to kind of make that trade-off for. Mm-hmm. Same thing for everything I'm saying also applies to Up.
Yes.
To make this less of like a Gary Cole grudge match between like your first R.E.M. album and this one. Like,
yeah. I was hoping this episode wouldn't turn into that. And I don't think it is going to, because I think we have very similar kind of appraisals of this. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. It's more about a general like kind of conception of mixed works.
Yeah.
It's hard for me not to like. I think that it is generally good in a critical space to look at the most interesting things something does, and talk about that. But there's also a part of it that is going to be like in what we've done with the network and stuff. It's always experiential.
Oh, for sure.
It's always going to be like, what's it like to experience this?
Yeah.
And you can't. To me, I can't ignore like the speed bumps that like. Yeah. Are very, very part and parcel of experiencing this.
Yeah, I think like we've been working together for almost 6 years now, and something just like that amount of time, even that long is not enough to get over certain kind of communication barriers. I don't believe that the highs of this make up for the bad, like the bad parts. Similar in the way that I don't think the bad parts of this mar the highs. Is the problem. Like I can look at those separately and then assign a different score to the combination. If we're looking at this in terms of like quantification. Like I think that separation works both ways. Is the way that it holds out for me.
And that makes sense. I just think that there are albums where we have to do less of that.
Oh yeah.
So it becomes less friction. It's not as full of friction when I don't have to spend as much time compartmentalizing things that I think are artistic mistakes versus things I think are artistic successes.
Yeah.
It's like, it's work for me, like to appreciate art and be like, Krusty's going to get here, in like a shuttle run, kind of, over and over and over.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of the experience of this feels, ends up feeling like to me.
There's also like a great deal of history for this to me too, where it's hard for the 3 or 4 listens that I did to this album to overwrite my experience of this in the past, where like I could skip maybe the last 2 minutes of the lifting, drop Summer Turns to High entirely. Like, this was an album that I kind of like jumped around on and listened to actively. My mode of listening to music forever was to sit down with the liner notes and read the lyrics as they went on. Like it was an experience that I could shape as opposed to sitting down and tearing apart every different one. I understand those are different tasks and different modalities that you have to have. And you can't let one substitute for the other when you're doing it. But that latter one where you are picking it apart is exactly what I intend to do for this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not trying to convince you not to like it either.
No,
I'm just trying to understand, how it can be something that like has these things and not come away feeling like it's a mixed bag.
I feel like it's a mixed bag.
Damning. But a mixed bag still has good stuff in it.
Yeah.
Like it's not all peanuts in your mixed nuts.
Yeah, no, definitely.
You're still going to get cashews.
I still eat trail mix every day, and like, yeah, I'm going to go for it for the cashews, even though raisins not my favorite thing.
Yeah. But there's, this album isn't all raisins, but like, there is an element of this that it's like a mixed bag that I feel like is a little bit of like a great value trail mix where like there's maybe a few too many peanuts and raisins.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there aren't those delicious little, sesame stick things and cashews and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
It's a weird trail mix we described, and we didn't go for the M&M, which is like the most obvious. Like
it really is. I'm generally like I'm not going to turn down an M&M. I don't want to rejoice in the presence of M&Ms, mostly because that bit on The Office where Michael is going through and picking all the M&Ms out.
Yeah. I don't. I'm not going to rejoice either at the presence of an M&M. Wake up, there's a single M&M in the middle of my kitchen, surrounded by a halo of light, and then just like.
But let's all just acknowledge that yes, trail mix has M&Ms. It's not the most healthy thing, but they're in there, and
there's candy in your work as well, and there's candy in this too. It just what the percentage is all we're like kind of debating.
Yeah.
Because we both agree there are good things, and if we had just kind of a fun kind of thing to do for this podcast that's too late to do would have been like in the first episode be like, okay, one sentence on each album before we actually revisit.
And then go back and compare.
Yeah, and go back and compare.
It would be so differend. It would be so different, Gary.
Because like Automatic for the People is great. And then and I would have been like, Reveal sucks. I had a very negative opinion of this before I revisited it, and I'd be able to see the M&Ms for the peanuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it just mistakes of the past are in the past, but I think that's still there. I think that you might even notice when we cast forward, because like when I talk about stuff that's coming up, I haven't listened to it yet. Like I haven't listened to Accelerate beyond just some singles in probably 5 years.
It's a little bit rough, man. Like it's not Around the Sun rough, but like it's not a great listen.
It's on the road.
Yeah. It's Tin Machine. It's a Tin Machine record. So this one though, let's talk about Reveal and kind of what shaped it. And like what's interesting, I know that this is in some ways getting off track, but what's interesting about it, the reason why I was talking about generalities with this album is that in reading about the production of it, the weaknesses I think this album feel like they are endemic to the production.
Oh yeah.
Which is like a band that is not challenged.
Right.
Like this was a too frictionless of a experience for them that resulted in an album that doesn't feel like it struggles up against anything or does a lot that's like super interesting.
Yeah.
Or at least like, that doesn't stretch a whole lot.
I'm happy that you made that point, because this does read and listen, as a band that is not hungry anymore. Like
there's no more punk. This is so far from Reckoning. Like this is so far from like that, kind of raw, Chronic Town feeling that we talked about. Like this is about as far as you can get from it until you get to the floor and get out a shovel and find a bunch of unsold copies of Around the Sun buried in a vault.
Right. Yeah. And when we say that, man, the production of this was incredibly relaxed. Like you read this and say, oh, I'm so happy they had a good time. Like, oh, well, that shouldn't be the way that you react to this.
Yeah.
Like we make jokes about the Marge Simpson thing. Like, oh, all that matters is that everybody had fun. Well, no, it matters the product, kind of. Like, I'm happy they didn't break up after Up, and I'm happy they used that, to have their, I don't know, like Adam Sandler never made great movies, but once he started using those as an excuse to take vacations, it really showed.
Yeah. Too fun.
Yeah.
Like it's the reason why like the Ocean's 12.
Yeah.
Or something like that, where it's just kind of like, yeah, I'm sure these actors like had a good time, but this is too slight.
Yeah.
Too fun. So this is again, the intentionality is intentional. That uniformity rather. And they decided that they had this kind of unrestricted recording session or schedule so that the pressure wouldn't repeat. They would not feel any kind of like, again, any kind of hungriness.
Right. Like, so, there is no advancing deadline. There's no external pressure. Even if, in the past, they were a big enough band to say, well, fuck it, it's done when it's done. But they decided for themselves, like, yes, we're going to make commitments and limit ourselves like this. No, they didn't have any deadlines. They just said, what gets done gets done. And that is, to become parodies of ourselves, a decision that springs from extreme privilege. Yeah.
Great art comes from restriction.
Right.
And comes from the doesn't come from that generally.
Right.
Like you can just do whatever you want and take as long as you want to do it. Is not how any of the best anything got made.
No. And a lot of this feels like it was a concession to Michael Stipe.
Yeah. Who was like literally like he describes it as like chasing the sun or like following the sunrise,
Right.
which is him recording whenever he kind of feels like it, larking on off to Europe to go spend a couple weeks to clear his head, then coming back and writing a couple more lines.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
must be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they rehearsed this in Athens, and then the backing tracks were done mostly in Vancouver, which, again, another city they had on their list. It was a nice way for like Peter Buck and those other, kind of second tier people, your Ken's Stringfellow, to be able to drive back to see their families on the weekend.
Yeah.
While Michael Stipe's overdubs and all the lyrical writing took place during the summer in Dublin. They had kind of set up this mobile Pro Tools rig. And, again, he would record for a while and then go off to, reset and then come back.
Yep. And then they ended up having an orchestra kind of join in Dublin.
Yeah.
At the end. So, and that's it as far as like strum and drang out the recording.
Yeah.
Like there's none. Like it's just kind of like, yeah, this was as easy as it got, we did it.
We butted heads and missed deadlines. Well, let's get rid of any friction and then also get rid of all deadlines.
Yeah, and this is kind of what that ends up being. They wanted Stipe specifically said he wanted to record like a summer record that kind of reflected his love of warm weather and the promise of summer.
Yeah, comes through. Like it came out during the summer. Like I listened to this on a summer break. It's nice to know that even that observation that I had when I was that young still holds true. Like it was this weird form of vindication. Not that it's subtle or anything, but like, yeah, it's got a different feel, and it kind of basks in this Beach Boysiness, in a way that goes above and beyond even, what is it? At My Most Beautiful.
Yeah. And some of the songs definitely kind of push that even kind of further.
Yeah.
And then that plays into the cover as well. The cover is this photograph of a field, which Stipe did his shadows in it as well.
Gary, how cool is that field?
It's like Stipe in a cool field is how I imagine it.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about it, but I in the last episode, but I like the cover of Up actually. I wish it had some kind of different font choices. But the color theory on display there is actually really excellent, I think.
Yeah.
Here as well. Like this is a very nice like palette.
I love the R.E.M. logo on that, like that it has the sun with a halo behind it and behind the R.E.M. shadow that is kind of being casted. Yeah. Yeah. It's very good.
They also did this thing again, just kind of this kind of anything goes methodology for this, where they gave the songs to different artists to have them remix it.
Right. For an album awkwardly titled R.E.M.X.
Yes,
R.E.M.9, R.E.M.I.X.
Yes. It is. I haven't really found those. Those are harder to find online, and I couldn't find a Wikipedia entry on it even.
No.
I found a Wikipedia. I couldn't find like YouTubes of it because you look up remixes, you don't find necessarily this.
It's strange because like this was kind of an opening salvo to get their music out to a lot of new people. Like they released this for free on their website.
Yeah. Yeah. And the album, there's the people really took I've Been High as a thing to remix for that bad boy.
It's a fine song. Maybe not 4 remixes in a row. Fine.
Whenever R.E.M. gets remixed, it's always weird.
Yeah.
When I was looking for this, trying to find this on YouTube, I found this hilarious club mix of The Great Beyond.
Oh, wow.
That's almost unrecognizable, except just the lyrics come through every once in a while. And it's so bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, that dance mix from Document.
Oh, yeah. The Finest Work song. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything like the Finest Twerk song in the dance remix version. But this
That's
whole
really dumb, Gary.
That was kind of good. This intersection of this intersection of R.E.M. and dance music or like remix culture never gets unawkward.
Right.
Like, from that Finest Work song mix to Radio Song to that song with Q-Tip to I'm Gonna DJ at the End of the World, like this fascination that Michael Stipe has with this, like never fits with the band ever.
It feels like such a bizarre authenticity play that comes off so tenured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, Grandpa, like chill out. Like, what are you going to DJ at the end of the world? Like, is it like all Patti Smith songs and like,
yeah,
no,
that's
yeah.
I don't know. Like, it feels like they were hoping to run DMC Aerosmith themselves a little bit.
Yeah,
like looking for some kind of crossover hit. Yeah, I don't know.
It's extremely weird.
Yeah,
extremely weird. So this album came out generally relatively well reviewed, but there's some mix going on. Like some of the things we talked about earlier, that like this is dinner music,
yeah,
came through in reviews as well.
Yes.
So it's like things like Rolling Stones and stuff, very very kind. Things like The Guardian, like way less kind.
Yeah. The book that we've both read, Perfect Circle, kind of has an axe to grind about this actually, like, oh, if you listen to this in Europe, it's very, very good. And like that is probably very much true. Like, it makes a point of saying like, oh, most of the bad reviews happen to come out of the US.
Yeah. And they talk about that because it didn't it sold okay. Like it, entered the charts at number 6, which is pretty low for them.
Right.
But that's okay. But they didn't it actually didn't sell okay. It did okay in the charts initially, but sold pretty bad.
Right.
And they keep doing fractions where it's like 2/3 of the people who listen to Monsters listen to Adventures in Hi-Fi, and 2/3 of those people went on to Up.
Yeah.
And stuff. And they're talking about why, and that part in the book where they're talking about that axe to grind is interesting because, the people in the R.E.M. camp, as much as they want to play it not caring, all have excuses for this.
Yeah.
And the one that I think resonates the best is that idea that like, radio rock, there's a very sad like factoid in that where Warner Brothers' biggest hit ever was the Linkin Park album that came out in 2001. And was the number 1 rock record that year and sold, way more than R.E.M. did in the last forever.
Right.
It was huge hit. So they're just not in the zeitgeist. Whereas like other parts of the country or other parts of the world rather are not as interested in your Linkin Park nonsense.
Right.
At the moment, which is probably true. They don't have a good look about it though, because they're so insecure and kind of muling about it. There's that promotional thing that was released from this that's like literally called "Not Bad for No Tour" that has their international sales figures on it.
Yeah. It's a very
We're still good boys.
Very Trumpy kind of move.
Totally. Yeah. Like, we won the popular vote. You didn't though. It's okay. You guys,
like, and then Peter Buck saying, well, I it doesn't matter if I never worked again, I would have enough money. Like, this is just a lark. Like, you can't be both ways, man.
It's funny when I love reading that in that book because it dovetails so nicely with the song by song book where they're constantly dismissing everything they do. That's one of the ways that these guys, it's not a good look, but it is another way in which they're really real. Is that they're so insecure and so like eager to like own their failures and dismiss them before their critics can.
Right.
They have a lot of reason to be very confident and they don't always come across as such.
Right. Yeah. Your bully can't play Stop Punching Yourself if you're already punching yourself.
Yeah. And they punch themselves with the shit.
Yeah.
They also talk about how Warner didn't know how to promote them, and Warner did like a huge staff cut.
Yeah, there's a lot in that chapter about the executive shakeups and stuff. The moral being that they became the band of the people who were cut, and everybody was like, well, fuck them. Those people are gone. We're just going to while out this contract anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So R.E.M. around town, they performed at the Rock in Rio festival for their biggest crowd ever, 190,000, which is huge. Probably less great was them performing under a gigantic AOL Time Warner banner that was set up because Warner decided to use this as a chance to raise awareness for their massive, trust conglomeration. Yeah.
It was the emoji movie of its time.
Yeah.
Just this place where brands got together to hang out. R.E.M. and Ready Player One. They also did some like cross media stuff here too, which I think we'll cover at some point. They're in an episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah. I watched that about a month ago. It's real superfluous to that episode.
Yeah. I just remember them being kind of funny and charming in the episode though.
Yeah. I love the idea of Mike Mills having piss anxiety.
Yeah.
Because Lenny was watching it.
Yeah, Lenny's watching Mike Mills. Like, that's just a beautiful sentence that, again, just kind of like intersects with too much of what I love. Real quick, I think I mentioned this on the show, but shout out to the anonymous person who, and I think I know who it is actually, who sent me the Mike Mills Simpsons guy.
Oh, geez, I'm so jealous.
Mike Mills Simpson. I mean, they're on eBay. You can get one.
I know.
It's very nice. It's very cute, and it is. I love him.
Yeah.
It also has that like Michael Stipe just going like nuts for gluten, like just like I remember that being pretty funny.
Yeah. And that's probably not the first one, but like something that would happen in The Simpsons, and sorry if I'm burning cash for when we cover this later, something that would happen in The Simpsons was like, Homer Simpson misinterpreting the lyrics to songs. Mm-hmm. And of course they do It's the End of the World as We Know It, with him just doing gibberish over top of it.
Yeah.
Talking about fast food and stuff. It's like,
that's kind of bad Simpsons.
Yeah.
That's going to keep kind of happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
on season 16 right now on my rewatch. I don't know how to stop drinking salt water. I don't want to decide what to watch next, but like
Simpsons everywhere.
It's getting dire.
That's pretty rough, man.
I know. Help.
Yeah, I when I'm in an airplane and they have in-flight entertainment, I'll watch a new Simpsons sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's always just like sad and shitty.
Like when we were in Milwaukee and we watched that one episode that was just airing contemporaneously, we laughed really hard. That was actually really funny.
There are a couple of good jokes in it, but it does feel soulless in a terrible, terrible way.
Yeah. I don't know. But yes, season 13, Homer the Mo, where Homer sets up his own bar. We may talk about it in depth later on.
Yes. Be on the lookout for that. They also, and I forgot to send this over to you to talk about it. I apologize for that, but we talked about the song a bunch.
Yeah.
They re-recorded All the Right Friends for the Vanilla Sky soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they brought it out like on tour and stuff. Like this was, something that they just kind of revived from their, very, very early days. This is kind of a combination of Cameron Crowe wanting a song for Vanilla Sky, which is a better movie than people acknowledge. And the other people in the band saying like, hey, remember that song? Let's do that again. Yeah.
Yep. We like Airman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of foreshadows them dusting off some oldies for the great best of we're going to talk about at the end of this.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
And then bam, 9/11. Whoa.
What? You didn't expect them to show up.
Yeah, bam.
Them 9/11.
File underwater, your source for
hot 9/11 just a crisis response takes.
Hot 9 on 11 action.
Ooh.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, this album came out in 2001. This happened, Michael Stipe lived in Greenwich Village. His home was there, and he saw it. Like that's pretty much right in the shadow a little bit. It's a little bit over, but obviously you can't escape it. And he went out there and offered his phone up to people while the phone connections were still there, so they could tell their family, "Hey, I'm okay," and participated in the rescue efforts. And of course, because everything turned into a nightmare off the back of that awful nightmare, they started working a lot with anti-war protest performances because just the machine had been, kick-started by that terrible, terrible event.
Yeah. And in the face of tragedy, like everyone was trying to license Everybody Hurts, and people were trying to get R.E.M. to like re-release it as a single, which would have made like gangbusters money, but they're not. They're not
ghouls.
Yeah, they're not ghouls. They're not going to do that. So they didn't, but they're like, you can use anything of ours for charity at this point. Like we want to help.
Right.
Which, that's a very relatable impulse.
Yes.
Yeah. They also performed something called Love Rocks to honor Bono.
Honor Bono.
To honor Bono as Humanitarian of the Year.
None of this ages well. The fact that they're
how cool are these? Like this works. This is the album this has to happen on, though, man. Like,
their quote about this, like, it's hard to put that kind of thing in perspective. So they're performing to honor Bono. They are doing a collaboration with Cher, who is still in the shadow and riding in the glow of life after love at this point. And they are introduced by Tom Cruise. So you would think, hey, Cher, whatever. No, she's kind of a weirdo on Twitter now.
Yeah.
So
Cher's very funny.
She tweets poems and emoji. It's kind of great. But no part of this age very well.
No. Like I know what all these words mean separately, but I don't know what they mean together.
Right.
Like, Love Rocks to honor Bono as Humanitarian of the Year, performing I Got You Babe with Cher, introduced by Tom Cruise. Like, right. None of that makes sense.
Right. And also just this weird REM humor thing. Let's do I Got You Babe kind of because of Sonny Bono, but that's not said the same way.
No. No. Like, it's very different.
Yeah.
And it's just like... Yeah.
And Bono's going to come up here pretty soon, actually. Like, Bono factors in very heavily into this next saga that happens.
We wanted to not talk about Bono in this podcast, but it kind of popped up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Bono's going to Bon, you know?
Yeah. The wake up Bono. So let's talk about this airplane incident. I remember where I was when this happened.
Yeah. I went out to the street and offered my phone to anybody who wanted to contact Peter Buck's family.
Anybody who wanted to lodge a complaint with British Airways, drop the charges.
So this is, I remember this too. And this like, what a bummer that this happened after the Behind the Music, because this would have been the entire second act.
Of course. The entire trial, they would have made so much drama out of this. And so it's going to be hard not to laugh about this, because some of the details about what happened on that flight, what people describe, are absurd, you know, in just kind of like you kind of have to laugh at it, but also it's very scary. Like, I can't imagine being the person who woke up being accused of this stuff, but I also can't imagine being a person who worked on that flight or was adjacent to this. Like,
oh man,
this sounds just incredibly bizarre.
I'm just imagining me being on that flight and being like, oh man, that's Peter Buck. Like, that's real cool. And then seeing the incident and then just seeing him like Hulk out.
Yeah.
You know?
So here's what happened. What I have labeled in here, the airplane incident. So Peter Buck, he was going to be flying to the UK on British Airways, I think going into Heathrow, but I might just be, snapping to grid on that. Before that, he had complained at dinner about like, I wish I could just kind of sleep through that entire flight. Peter Buck had battled with insomnia, and long flights are just fucking garbage anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So a friend at that dinner decided, hey, well, I'll give you some Ambien. You can take that and just, zonk out.
Yep. And he either didn't know or didn't care or something, but he mixed it with red wine. He took a bunch of free red wine in first class, took his pill and a half Ambien, and then hulked out.
Yeah.
Like, went on a rampage on the plane. The book like talks around what he does in a way that's really amazing. Like, there's a sentence, I think, that's like a full sentence in that book that's like, Buck is a very big man.
Yeah.
I think is like the full sentence.
Uh-huh.
Like, big man's coming to like like Michael Stipe lost control of his strong son. Like,
oh God, don't mix pills with me or my son again. Yeah. Well, but he had an accomplice. It was him and the tour manager.
Yeah.
Whitaker. I didn't grab his first name. I don't imagine he stuck around with the organization after that.
It's real weird.
Yeah. The book talks around it. They present the kind of occurrences on that as kind of allegations by the crew and the other passengers by, like for what happened. And again, like we're laughing because this is inherently absurd. It's also fucking terrifying.
Again, we're not saying like, we're not absolving Peter Buck of like being a shithead with this.
No,
like, this is no good.
Yeah.
But so he's like doing things like the food cart comes by. He thinks it's a CD player.
Yeah.
Somebody had yogurt tossed at them.
Yeah. Tried to claim the stranger as his wife. Like, hey, I'm married to you now.
Yeah, we're married now. And here's something that like, I'm glad this happened when it happened, as opposed to like, because I think this happened.
This was in April before 9/11.
Yeah, before 9/11, because he tried to get into the cockpit.
Yeah.
And tried to open up an emergency exit.
Yeah, saying, so, like, I'm going to go home now.
If this happened in October of 2001, Peter Buck would be dead. Like,
no question. No question.
Like, an air marshal would have like shot him. Yeah, international flight. Like, he may not dead, but he would have been like shot.
Yeah,
like, like this would have been very, very bad.
It was bad enough that the trial happened after 9/11. Like, everybody wanted, like this was presented as air rage. I remember this was like the first time that I heard about that, heard this kind of behavior described in those terms, which anybody who's flown has a little bit of sympathy for it, because flying sucks. But yeah, like the court was trying to make an example of him as both this 1-2 punch of saying, hey, if you're famous, we're going to throw the book at you. And also like, I don't know, 9/11 just happened. So like, this can't happen. Like, you can't do this.
Yeah. Like it's literally no good. So he got arrested when they landed. They considered, doing an emergency landing. Like a Peter Buck related emergency landing.
Right. They subdued him, but not before he managed to yell out, I am R.E.M. It's like, oh, okay, Judge Dad.
Yeah, nobody's heard Up. Like this is the wrong album for you to pull this. Just wait until you hear All the Way to Reno. Then you'll learn.
Yeah. Oh, geez. They said, who knows how much of this is true, but they said like he drank like 15 glasses of wine.
Oh, I don't know. That came out in the book because it said he had 3 before the pill. So I don't know if he kept drinking.
Right.
But yeah, that's a lot of wine.
Yeah, it's three's a lot of wine.
Yeah, it is. So he's arrested when they landed, and on April 21st, 2001, and he was looking at like 4 years because of all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But he's like, I'm very embarrassed. I have no memory. This kept getting retrials, and he kept having to fly back and forth. Yeah, for this shit, which was expensive and shitty, but that's fine.
It's what happens. Yeah. So this ended up being like, not as like media circus makes it sound like it's the fucking Michael Jackson trial, but like, they had Mike Mills and they had Michael Stipe come in and, attest to his character, saying something that my eyebrow kind of goes up at. Oh, I've never seen him drunk before.
That's 100% a lie.
Yeah.
Like there's literally no way that, Michael Stipe has not seen, or Mike Mills has not seen Peter Buck drunk.
Right. And, Mike Mills, I love that detail in the book. It says like, oh, his nickname was Trouble because he always shut down the bar. You know, like,
yeah.
So, like Mills would have seen Buck drop out at some point.
Is this going to be like that episode of The Simpsons where Bart accidentally exposes Krusty's offshore bank account where we're going to get like, R.E.M. in jail for perjury through this podcast?
Oh no. All of them. Like, put in British jail.
Yeah. Like a barrister is going to come up to us and be like, you've done a right good service, chaps. You'll always be remembered, but not by me. I love R.E.M. And then like leave.
He just leaves like whistling the melody to oh gosh. I don't know.
Losing my religion, probably.
There we go. Yeah.
But yeah, it is, hopefully we didn't just get them in trouble for perjury.
No,
but
we're basing this off of information that we read in these books,
they definitely perjured though.
Yeah.
Can't prove it. But.
Character weakness is always such a weird thing too. Also when you have, you call in the guns, like, oh, we're in a British court. Who should we get? Bono? Yeah. Bono testified at Peter Buck's trial.
That's very weird. Yeah. It's weird to think of anyone hanging out with Bono, let alone my boys, because they're so down to earth and Bono's so not. Mm-hmm. Luckily he was found not guilty.
Yes.
And we all got to hear Around the Sun.
Yeah. So that is an embarrassing thing in their history, which is going to be hard. I don't know. You don't hear people talking about it, but like it was the talk of the town at the time. Yeah.
It was a big deal. Yep. I remember that very much. So let's talk about the record.
Yes. Remember, we are talking about Reveal, which is split into sides. The first is the chorus side. The second is the ring side. But let's talk about chorus.
Yes. With the very first song, The Lifting, which for some reason on my Apple Music isn't on there.
Yeah, I noticed that today.
You have the same problem too?
Yeah. It's weird. That is not a problem on my phone, but when I was listening on my computer, it skipped right over to I've Been High.
It was real weird. I had to like go in and find, and the version they have on Apple Music that I could find is the weird alternate version from the rarities. So to hear the original version, I had to use my memory and then also go on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was written as a prequel of sorts to Day Sleeper, which is very strange because I believe that I heard this first. Up was later for me in terms of like listening to R.E.M. stuff. This does not feel like it is related to Day Sleeper aside from a couple of quotes. Yeah, there's it kind of, the idea of doing a sequel to Day Sleeper seems very misguided to me. Yeah. Because that's a lot of the strengths of that is that it is a sketch.
Yeah. that's not totally spelled out. And this is, we didn't need like Day Sleeper origins, to fill out that backstory.
Right.
Yeah. So it's hard to kind of get a pin on it, how it relates to that. If you think of it in its own terms, I think this is fine.
Yeah. Like it opens up, this is a short story, about a person who is like involved in this weird, like semi-religious, but semi-business kind of seminar thing, and how it relates to their own problems. And it ends on just this straight up like Lovecraftian note, which is strange for them.
Yeah. Yeah. With literally sunken cities.
Yeah.
Which is super weird. It does that. So you can kind of see some of my structural problems with the songs on this album, even just looking through the Genius thing, where it, verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, chorus times 2, bridge, the word never 19 times, and then an outro.
Never 19 times is the real standout there.
Yeah. It's just I feel like I can't think of a song on this record or the last one, again, to be fair, that couldn't stand to be much shorter.
Yeah.
They always make their point before before I'm done with them.
Yeah.
Or I'm done with them well before they get done. So this is definitely that happens with this. So even if there are things I really like, like the song, which I think is generally pretty good.
Yeah.
I almost never hear the end of it because I gotta move. Like, this is a long record.
You hit those nevers and it's like, nope, I don't care how cool that last verse is. I'm gonna get to I've Been High, which is a better song.
Yeah. It's I don't know if I like I've Been High better, but I want to move on to something.
Yeah.
For me is where I'm at.
Yeah.
So this is as long as Up, but it's two fewer songs. Which I think is telling too. Like, these are longer, more luxuriated kind of songs.
Yep. Again, that
general.
Ramp up and cool down.
Yeah.
Like, don't structure your albums like they're your songs like they're workouts. Yeah.
Yep.
Structure them like they're montages of workouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of interestingly, there's a version of this on the Rarities that was that's kind of got scaled back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this does have a lot of electronic flourishes to it.
It does. There's a lot of noise to this. There's like signal, like almost frequency sweeps that happen over the entire thing. It's a very spacey song.
Yeah. Yep. And the original version is a little bit worse, or a little less of that. But there's, a little less like English on the chorus.
Yeah.
It's not quite as good.
Go back and listen to the second Letters episode we did, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, where we also included the discussion of the of the Unplugged that they did around here. The stripped down versions of these songs almost universally are more successful. The lifting is not present there, but I think that is, I like the original version except for the chorus a lot better.
Yeah.
I wish that they would have, kept the lyrical and melodic structure of the main one, but stripped it back.
Yeah. And a lot of the flourish stuff here is kind of has a foot in both ponds for me. Like, it doesn't do enough to add interest. It's not the focus, but it also doesn't add enough.
Right.
It's not my main problem with these songs, but it also, I don't miss it at all. Like, I think the unplugged versions are probably stronger too.
Yeah.
So that second song that you do kind of get through getting through the lifting, your reward for getting through the lifting.
The lifting is a strong opener. I like the way the lifting opens.
And compared to like Airport Man or something, like the lifting is a good song.
Yeah, but it opens like on a
song, but it's a good song.
It opens on a strong piano riff, and then that first verse, grounded 9 a.m. That's fine. Like, it actually like sets a scene and brings an immediacy to the album that I enjoy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The second song is I've Been High. This is a softer, kind of sensitive, kind of drum machine based song.
Yes.
These little, like, again, the kind of Postal Service-esque, like, staccato drum machine beats. Real down tempo. This is an inversion of my normal reveal structure, where I think the verses of this are cool, but I don't like the choruses. Yeah, it's usually the opposite. But for this one, it's like I think the chorus is okay, but I wish there was a little bit more melody to it. The verses, I think, are kind of interesting.
Yeah, especially the third verse, like where it picks up and it becomes, again, that country feedback vomit a little bit.
Yeah. And that kind of playing with I'm always going to be playing with a saying.
Yeah.
Like, have gun will travel. is kind of the motif here, and that I like that quite a bit.
Yeah. I like the song quite a bit. I think that this album has two very strong ballads. When ballad as, an R.E.M. thing, I've never really gone in for it before. Before this, I think that they hit a height with these. And I like the lyrical content of this, like just I just very regretful, this song. And it's a pretty pure expression of that.
Yeah. Again, for me, it is a good song. It's not a great song.
Yeah.
But it does the job, and it has some of that interesting kind of like staccato drum machine stuff is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
During the verses.
Also, at one point he sings, he's in his soulful voice, and you're like, oh, I just needed to believe, but his voice kind of breaks and falters on believe. It's a very good delivery of that.
Yeah. On to the I think the second single.
Yeah.
From the album, All the Way to Reno, parenthetical, You're Gonna Be a Star.
Yeah, opens up with this very spacious kind of like country guitar. Again, the bottom two strings where all the money's at, as they break into it, but it quickly turns into just drum machine and like weird frequency warbling. Yeah.
And this is kind of a general, like, even the whole thing kind of has a country feel to it.
Yeah.
It does. So I like this song. I think this is catchy.
Yeah.
Melodically, lyrically, it doesn't do tons for me. Like there's only a couple words that are not chorus or pre-chorus in this. Like this has almost no verses.
Right.
It's very weird. You spend so much time on the, know what you are. You're going to be a star.
Like literally 3 minutes of that.
Or various versions of that.
Yeah.
You know who you are, like you've already said that, like, it feels like there's just not enough words in this, which is a weird thing for me to think.
Yeah.
But it's still 5.5 minutes long.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be that long.
No, it is bloated, but otherwise I think is a good choice for a single.
Yeah.
Because it is really catchy. And they do a thing that they do later, I think in Beat a Drum, which I like a lot, which is that little like, ascending low part on the guitar that kind of comes before the verses of this. No, not that. So where it's like, challenge the laws of chance. Ding, ding, ding,
oh,
ding,
yeah.
ding, ding. And they do that during Beat a Drum as well. And I like that quite a bit. It's just a little too much for me, like a little too long and a little too flabby, I think.
Yeah. I agree. We're on very similar notes to this. Yeah. I wish that it was more focused.
Yeah, like it could have, and it's a single. Like it could. Yeah. I'm sure there was a single mix or a radio mix that is, shaves away the cruft.
Yeah.
But that should have just been on the album, because this unending second half of the song that just is the same things we've already done. Like,
yeah. Well, it devolves into slurry.
Yeah. No editor would accept this.
Right. Yeah. Like this could be an amazing 3-minute song. Yeah. And like I like the lyrical content of this too. Like, you don't go to Reno to be a star. Like it is, it is compromised and kind of sarcastic on its face.
Yeah.
Even
though there is like something where you have to read a lot into it, because a lot of the lyrics, like that's there are a couple of things that are, you have to paint a bigger picture with smaller amounts.
Yeah. Because
so much of the lyrical content of this is just chorus.
Right.
I think the video is really charming and good.
Shot at a high school in Prospect Heights. In Brooklyn.
Yep. With Michael Moore, polarizing figure. And but mostly they just let kids take the camera. And it's really cute.
Yeah.
Like it's I didn't know that I needed to see Mike Mills pull a lunch tray up and get served a lunch, or early on, Michael Stipe whispers the lyrics into a teenage girl's ear, and she can't stop giggling because
here's the strange skeleton man talking about Reno.
Here's the melted candle. The melted candle boy is going to whisper, "You're so sweet to me," and it doesn't come off as skeevy or anything. It just comes off as very, very cute and charming. I think.
Yeah. And they introduced the kids who made it at the end. They wave into the camera and smile. It's it's cinema verite like Michael Moore does, but no, it has nothing to do with the actual song. It's very kind of cute and charming. It's rich with incident.
I think it's very cute.
Yeah.
And goes on for twice as long as it should.
Right.
Moves on to She Just Wants to Be.
Yes. So this is a very, kind of folky acoustic ballad. It's kind of it feels a little bit like a lyrical mirror to Reno, a little bit. Again, it's about a person who's leaving home, who wants, who wants more. Here we are. I wish they would have taken some lyric out of this and put it in Reno.
Yeah.
This is very dense with lyric.
It's very dense with lyrics until you get to the chorus, which feels like a cliche to me.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't particularly like.
If you're gonna retell She's Leaving Home.
Yeah. Like that's the kind of thing it is, and like this is something where like I have to struggle to remember what happens during the verse of this.
Yeah.
Like the chorus, like I know I can hear it.
Yeah.
I just can't, like, looking at these words, it's hard to have the connection for me. And that's like, and then it's something I associate with this album quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it's like, I had to work at it. Like, I know what this verse is like, but it took me time to tell this apart from the beginning of any number of songs that kind of go back and forth between two chords in the beginning of them on this album.
Yeah. And that's a problem for you in general, is the two chord kind of thing.
It just comes up a lot. So it's a problem when it's a thing when it comes up once, it's like, oh, this is kind of a bummer, but to structure like, probably 4 or 5 of these 12 songs do that.
Yes. In
the beginning. And it's just, it's a real preponderance of, again, like R.E.M, it feels like they forgot how to make catchy verses.
Yeah.
To me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the song is fine. It doesn't rise up to like similar songs. Like it feels like it's got one foot in All the Way to Reno and has another foot in Chorus in the Ring, and it doesn't rise to either of those.
Yeah. It also has the problem of like being right next to Disappear, which is like, She Just Wants to Be, like, I came here to disappear. Like,
yeah.
Lyrically,
it's about people and locations.
Yeah, it's very like, it's weirdly empty. It's less like just saying lyrics like Up sometimes is, where it's just like kind of saying statements. But it ends up being kind of lacking relevant, like detail that you can like tie your imagination to.
Yeah.
Which isn't true for all of the songs on this album. Like there are some like better lyrical turns, but there is just kind of a sense of like, this is just story time.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell what it's really, about.
Yeah. And like the first portion of She Just Wants to Be is, very rich with description. The Mingus, Chet Baker, and Chess, that paints a picture very well of like what this person values. There's no action to it. Yeah.
And then later it doesn't really pay off on that.
Yeah.
It doesn't keep that same level of interest, I think.
Yeah.
So Disappear, which kind of starts off with this like acoustic, yeah. Kind of thing in the beginning of it.
It's really cool because again, it's this kind of this frequency scanning on top of very chaotic strings, on top of just like, again, a very, like low, the low strings on an acoustic guitar doing this very simple riff. If it maintained that energy, or if it alluded to it more than a couple of times in the song, it would actually be very, very cool, because it cuts a distinctive figure for this song that immediately falls away into reverb vocals and weird phasing and stuff.
Yeah, and just kind of like a real reveal ass verse.
Yeah.
Where this kind of comes through. And like I just realized, like, looking at these two songs to back, like they have a very like a similarity in kind of chorus, where he's just kind of hitting single syllables on each note. Like she just wants to be, and I looked for you everywhere. There's like a kind of like there's not as much like motion in it. I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out what it is about like these specific things are kind of leaving me cold as far as melodically.
Yeah.
Like there's kind of like, it's kind of like there's a lockstep.
Yeah. It feels locked in. It feels locked in and spare. Like it almost feels like he doesn't have a like a single syllable to waste, or he doesn't feel like he does. But it's like, oh, you have plenty of syllables to waste. Like, make this into a melody, please.
Yeah, and the verses become this kind of rambly, like not quite speak singy, but are not like, he's not singing with his whole voice. Like it's kind of lower and a little bit like mumblier or
Yeah.
groanier.
There's a
in
call I
these.
haven't come to yet. I spent half my life figuring what comes next. Like I'm doing that because I'm speaking into a microphone. You know, I'm not a singer. But that is very similar to the delivery that we get.
Yeah. It's a little bit more like exhaley. Wait, is it? That comes next. Like it's a little more. Again, it just feels a little lockstep on the beat.
Yeah.
In a way that it's hard to exactly point to what's doing that, but it's very similar in these two songs together.
Yeah.
And that makes them bleed together in my mind a little bit. And they're in the exact same place on the album that Sad Professor and and The Apologist are. It's kind of weird. They're like almost the exact same place in the album, but these end up forming like a two songs I have a hard time telling apart.
Yeah.
They don't feel like are very distinct.
I want to give the song credit for what it does well. That the vanishing point appeared when they do that, like in the what passes for the pre-chorus in this. It's a single line, but like when it turns into kind of those wails and yops, like it makes me think it's going to go into a much better chorus than it actually goes to.
Yeah.
And also, like, it cuts a strong figure at the start. I wish that they would capitalize on that atmosphere. I wish they would lean into this being an apocalyptic R.E.M. song like they've done in the past. They just pull that punch and let it be, just kind of production wankery, over top of the speak singing. Like,
yeah. Yep. And then the side ends with Saturn Return. This is a song. So Peter Buck is like his weak, his self-professed like weakest instrument. He plays piano on this.
Yes.
This one.
Yeah. This is very much like a short story that is set to music. It's almost like a Peter and the Wolf kind of thing about a surreal situation of a convenience store worker fixing the galaxy. And the notion of a Saturn return is like an astrological thing. It's like, a rotation of Saturn takes 30 years. A person's Saturn return happens when they're 30 years old. If you haven't learned some kind of great life lesson by the time you're 30, then it predicts an early death or something like that. Like that's a little bit what they're talking about with this. This is mostly an atmospheric song. I kind of dig this in a way that I haven't, given a lot of credit to R.E.M. experiments before. But yeah, just the disparate parts do not touch at the edges, but are held together by the imagery for me.
Yeah, I think lyrically this is fine. It ends up being weird. Like the chorus to this being a chorus is weird.
Yeah.
It's like it's in search of a songness.
Yeah.
that I don't think would have hurt it.
If they just like jettison that.
Or if they'd added, have a repeating phrase that ties this together.
Yeah.
And keep everything else the same. And make it seem a little bit more like a song.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have hurt it. I think this is fine too. I think, this is fine. I think the lyrics are kind of neat. I think musically it's largely forgettable to me. But
it's full of moments for me. Like when it's when we're talking about like boarding the rocket ship Triumph, and then the drums kind of pick up, and actually becomes a beat. Like as they're preparing for the launch, like that I think is a cool, again, using the language of music for storytelling. It is that Peter and the Wolf kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting in that respect. Like I'd give it that. It tends to bounce off my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Like to get to mine that stuff, I have to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was never a skipper. I liked listening to it and just kind of like sinking into the atmosphere.
Yeah. Side B, Ringside opens with beat a drum.
Yeah.
Which is like, again, this is probably, it does that thing I was talking about, I was referring to before. And this is one of my favorites on this record.
Yeah, this is very good.
Yeah. The verse parts of it sound, again, like this is again a reveal thing for me though, where I feel like the verses being so disconnected from the chorus a lot of time. Like the beginning of this, the verses sound Beach Boys to me. Beach Boise, from if you go down to Beach Boise, Idaho, it sounds like that to me. And then when the chorus comes in, it almost feels like you could do like a chorus verse scrambler on this record to me. Like it's just like like almost any number of these like verses could go with this song.
Yeah, I could map to one or the other.
The like chorus performance is really, really strong, and like that dumb little guitar riff, what I need, ding, 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 ding. Like that just does it for me. And like the the guitar following the vocal up to that note
Yeah.
slowly, like, is very cool to me.
Yeah, this is an incredibly summery song. I like how simplistically naive it is. You know, like just this is all I want, this is all I need, this is all I am. You know, like just this pure expression of contentment really resonates for me in a way that, yes, it's kind of frivolous. Like, reviewers raked this album over the coals for how much it like talked about dragonflies and seahorses and stuff, but like, I don't know, this song is a very good distillation of that, again, naivete to it.
Yeah, I think this is pretty good.
Yeah.
This is probably, out of songs that we come through so far, this is my favorite one so far.
Yeah.
And then Imitation of Life comes out, which we'll talk about, and this is, again, like, this feels like it's weird when R.E.M. does one of these songs. It is the Day Sleeper, like, it's the R.E.M. ass R.E.M. song,
right,
in the middle of this record that doesn't sound like an R.E.M. record in a lot of ways.
No.
So it ends up as like, I'm always happy to have this come back. Like, this is a great song.
Imitation of Life. Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's one of my favorite R.E.M. songs. Like, it's so good. It's
really fantastic, and it's like, it fits in the album in a very weird way. Like in like, it doesn't, nothing else on the album sounds like it.
No, I mean, like, this is the only song. It's probably the first song in 2 albums maybe that we've had any jangle on. Like, this is, from the opening guitar strum, this is a throwback.
Yeah, like, very much so. And it's like, I love it. It's unquestionably my favorite song on the album, like, In a Walk.
Yeah, there's no question. Yeah.
But it's always feel a little bit like it's not very Reveal.
Right.
It's the entry from Reveal to be on the greatest hits.
Right.
Because it's a really, really fantastic song.
Yeah.
And paired with, I think, their best music video.
Oh, it's so good. Like, this is one of my favorite videos, period.
Yeah.
Like, of any of them. Like, just, yes, it is a lot of technical artifice, but it uses that to tell a really great story that, like, fits in with the album overall and definitely fits the song.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've never seen it, we've talked about good videos before on this podcast, and you could probably take that with a huge grain of salt, because, like, we're judging on a curve.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like, as much as the What's the Frequency kind of video is good, I don't feel like it's mandatory in terms of video.
No.
It's not innovative. This feels very innovative and cool.
Yeah, this is heightening upon heightening to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's 30 seconds of somebody taking this kind of wide angle shot of a party where a lot of things happen.
Yeah.
You get to watch it all at once. And then it does this pan and scan and kind of rewind to show different parts.
Yeah. And it moves in, forward motion and backward motion. To kind of like zoom in on particular things and show them happening and then, being undone as they go.
Yes. And it's really cool. Like, all this little detail. And the most clever part of it is the way that people, it's only 30 seconds of party, but people in the party are singing different parts of the song.
Yeah. I cannot imagine orchestrating that one bit.
No, it's kind of like a P.T. Anderson-esque, like, one long shot kind of stunt feeling to it. It's great.
Oh my gosh. Just that exact moment, like a Friday fashion show teenager with that, the teenager, the young woman, throwing the drink on her aunt or whatever, who's being a real loudmouth, lowering her, kind of like her dress line, exposing more cleavage, and then putting it back up and then taking the drink back. Like, that exact moment of like, oh, this is what she wishes she could do.
Yeah. It's super. It's very good. It has more depth than it initially seems like it would have.
Yeah.
Like, lyric wise, I feel like this is a little, like, slight.
It's fine
to me.
It is definitely bolstered by the delivery. That moment where it's like, oh, this lightning storm, this tidal wave, this avalanche, I'm not afraid. Like, I think that is as good of a, like, I don't know, like, call to action, or just a, like, hey, everybody stand up kind of moment, as they've had since, like, the combination of what is it, Begin the Begin and Get Up.
It's I mean, but musically, when that happens, it's a down part. It's like the bridge.
Yeah. It makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck when they do it.
Yeah, it's really it's good, but it's all, for me, it is all delivery. Yeah. Like, in that part, because that sounds like accessory. That sounds like a lyric from Walk Unafraid to me. Like, it's it sounds like a accessory. Like, saying I'm not afraid in the face of something like that is very on the nose. And this is also the first time, not the first time, but another thing that reminded me that I kind of want to take the word cry away from Michael Stipe.
Yeah. Cry and
He
try.
needs to stop singing about it quite so much,
Yeah.
you know, and it becomes a little like, again, like kind of teenagery in a way that like I agree with you, the delivery saves it, you know, and like all the little bits about cinnamon and sweets and Hollywood and stuff, like that's very cute and kind of like nice little poetry that is hard to fit into like a grander statement.
It falls into a problem of like a sufficiently famous band making a song about the problems of being famous.
Yeah.
Like, oh gosh, don't you hate it when your butler doesn't get all the schmutz off your sock garters?
Yeah, hard to sympathize with.
Yeah.
You know, but still ends up being, you know, lyrics are never my first thing. Like, and the lyrics that are there, like the delivery does do a lot. It's a really great performance.
Yeah.
From Stipe. There's a couple of interesting factoids. I love this little bit with the keyboard solo.
Yeah.
The string fellow like was on a synthesizer, started playing along, but didn't have a monitor. Like there's no way you could hear that synthesizer in the room while like drums and stuff were happening. But they ended up using it. And that's why you got that real weird little
like ramshackle kind of thing.
Yeah. Synthesizer solo.
Yeah. And this was initially called trumpet chorus. So that string part was originally like a horn line. It was a very good decision for them to change that.
I would love to hear it with horns just to hear it though.
Yeah.
Like I think the strings are probably better, but it would change the tenor of the song in a way that like wouldn't make it a better song, but would make it more interesting on this record, I think.
Yeah.
You know, it's already like a standout or more interesting in like this period of their career, I guess.
Yes.
You know, like it'd be a little bit less of like an R.E.M. song, I think.
Yeah. It's a very good song. I love this a lot. Like I just, since we started the show, I've been listening to it kind of on repeat.
It's really, it's very, very good.
So we go from the high point of the album to my personal low point. Summer Turns to High is, the word that I used in the note here is somnolent.
Like, not to sound pretentious, but itchy and scratchy from a dramaturgical diet.
It's so sleepy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it is sleepwalking through this entire thing. And I know like that kind of was what they're going for. But again, intentional does not mean good.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem, I don't think this is a great song either. I think the biggest problem with it is that and this is like doing the podcast is actually zeroing in on this because it's very similar to the chorus problem and those other things, is just the vocals are too lockstep with the instruments. Like it's literally, you know, Mercury is, and the instruments are doing the same thing. Like everything is so like Stipe is afraid to leave the security of the beat.
Yeah, there's no complement. There's no kind of like syncopation,
counter melody
that's happening.
Like complement or kind of counter melody or anything like that. And like it's kind of at its worst here.
Yeah,
you know. Whereas I do think it's a thing that kind of washes over the whole record. But this is only this.
Yeah,
you know, it's only that element without anything else to really kind of elevate it.
Yeah. And that locked inness even goes to like when they do open up and bring in something that is not just this incredibly kind of generous reverb over top of weird, summery, wavy mirage lines. You know, it is like this locked in arpeggiation. You know, dun 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 dun.
Yeah, and just hitting notes on those first little bits. Very slow, very slight. Kind of noteworthy with the like kind of impressive falsetto.
Yeah.
You know, in the chorus, like this is a good way to deploy falsetto, I think.
Yeah.
But it's still not something I really like listening to that much.
Yeah, this is the perennial skipper for me, and I'm sorry if I'm giving up the worst of our worst and first, but
you're not. I'm gonna say something that's gonna. I mean, it's not gonna be contentious. I was gonna say gonna make you mad, but you're not gonna get mad because you're grown up. This is where I stopped listening to the record.
Oh yeah,
like pretty regularly. I don't think the last 3 songs are very good.
Oh,
yeah, not you know. Again, like I don't want to fight about it or anything. I gave it my best shot to get into them, but I am so exhausted by this point.
Yeah.
Like we're 45 minutes in. We are, every song has 3 to 4 verses in at this point. Like I am beaten down into nothing by the time Summer Turns to High comes around.
Yeah, I can't blame you. I really can't blame you for having your goodwill sapped. I think that each of these songs, like if you started listening Chorus in the Ring, I think they have their charms to them. Mm-hmm. I like them better than you do, but like taken as a whole, like it's a long walk to get to, again, more B material.
I've listened to them a bunch, obviously, for preparation. And out of the three, I think my least favorite one is Beach Ball. Like, I think Chorus in the Ring and I'll Take the Rain have something to them. Like, for me, I think I'll Take the Rain a little bit more. Chorus in the Ring is okay. I think Beach Ball is pretty annoying.
Oh.
Like, I don't know. It feels a little stunty to me. But I mean, we don't have to. I'm not saying this to summarily go through all three of them. We can still go song by song.
It's kind of a quirk of our format because I put these notes in and I leave notes for myself to talk up things that I really enjoy. You get a sense of my appraisal of these things before we get to them. So your opinion is always a surprise for me, whereas mine is laid bare for you.
Yeah, it's the inversion of when we do extra sodes.
Yes,
where you've read the comment or you've edited the submissions.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not a surprise for me, but not for you.
Right.
But yeah, let's talk about them individually.
Yes.
Just I just wanted to say in the experience of listening to the album, here is where I want to listen to something else very desperately.
Yes, Imitation of Life is like that. That is a high watermark that it would be unrealistic to expect any of these songs to rise to, especially after it immediately like just the bottom gives out and takes us to Summer Turns to High.
Yeah. Yep. And did we mention there's a demo of this, which has the self-aware name of 32 chord song, which it reminds me of like the demo for Bandwagon, which was like called like Fruity Song or whatever. Like they know when they're using kind of wanky chords.
Right. Yeah. And they haven't used a lot of chords in a particular song. And I don't think that Summer Turns to High feels particularly complex. Like
no,
I would need to go and look at a tab. It's like if that's where you hit all of the chords, you hit them pretty well.
What it is each chord could be just kind of simulated by it reminds me of like those like how to play recorder things where you learn how to play like Yankee Doodle or whatever, and just imagine every note of Yankee Doodle replaced with a chord. Because that's what Stipe is doing with his voice, is just hitting one note on every chord.
Yeah.
That's what it's like.
Yeah.
But let's get into the Chorus in the Ring.
Yes. I like the song an awful lot, and most of my affection for it comes from the lyrics. I think the production on this is actually kind of a mess. Mm-hmm. But this is a song that sprung out of a jam, and they decided to use their first take, kind of all of these stumbles included, right? They tried different ones and said, hey, this didn't capture it as well. There are two problems that I have with this. First off, I thought that it might have just been like, the CD capture that I did 10 years ago when I transferred this over to my iPod or whatever. But that distortion and the static that comes through to it, and it's just like a straight up clipping. I thought that was an artifact. No, that's in every version of the song.
Yeah, it's a feature.
Yeah. Not crazy about that. The rhythm thing doesn't bother me as much because they've done that before. Like, fine. But yeah, this is a very kind of like straightforward, kind of, acoustic folk kind of song. And most of the instrumentation, like the electric stuff, is very subtle. Michael Stipe's poetry is out at the front of this. And I think that there are just a lot of, good descriptions of a person that are present in this. Not that crazy about the chorus of it. I wish it was more verse than anything, but like, hey there now, young holy, swing along, quote the scriptures, keep them guessing which pit you crawled from. Like, that's really good. Talking about the octopus that can crawl back to the sea. Like, all of this feels incredibly evocative to me in a way that, like, speaks to things that I value a lot.
Yeah. I feel like there's not, this is an example of one of those things where it's an either or choice, and I wish it wasn't.
Yep.
Like I wish that you could do this kind of evocative kind of poetry thing and put a more successful song around it.
Yeah.
Which, like, I mean, you can, like that's possible, I guess, is my point. Like, and it would just be easier to go down. Like, I wouldn't have to enjoy this, like, with a lyric sheet in front of me. I could enjoy this while taking a shower or just walking down the street, if that were the case. Like, it needs a spoonful of sugar, I think.
Yeah.
And there are parts where it kind of like dips into that, like the beginning of the chorus part, which is not super strong, like hints at something like it's going to be, it starts to like, it wants to soar for a second and then stops.
Well, yeah, it's entirely that keyboard or synth part that kind of mirrors the the initial line. That's when the insults start to sing, like, that is a very good thing, but it doesn't
go anywhere. Yeah. It threatens to take off and doesn't take off. So it ends up being like very similar to that reveal thing of this being all build up. you know, which again is good for a lyric, like, you know, that can be great for a lyric perspective. But I wish it was built into a song.
Yeah. Looking at the chords for this, boy, this is kind of grim. It's just the verses are just. I've never tried playing this. Oh wait, that's a lifting. Fuck me. Sorry.
No, it's okay. The one of those things. I don't know why people do that, but people tend to put whole albums in chord files like that. I don't think it's actually that useful. Like, I'm gonna sit down and play, you know, on Mac for people from back to front. Like, why wouldn't I just? It's. I guess maybe it speaks of like an album mentality that is less popular now. But
it's just straight up A to D is the entire thing. Like the chorus goes from like an augmented D down to what appears to be another kind of D. It's really flat.
Yeah, and A is very similar to.
Yeah. They're played differently. Like they're not just like the straight up, you know, open chord kind of versions of them. But it doesn't move much, let's say.
Yeah. So it ends, you know, it's there's things to like about it.
Yeah.
Doesn't move a whole lot. Slightly more successful for me is I'll Take the Rain.
Yes.
This is the third single from the album.
Yeah.
Here.
With the most incongruous video I think they've ever done. The
video is very weird.
Yeah, it's like it's a flash animation.
Yeah. Yep. Radiskull is going to come out and yell at R.E.M. and explain to them.
Yeah, it's about a dog that is exploring an island with a skateboard. I don't understand one bit. That doesn't pair well with a song that I think is fucking heartbreaking. This is very good. I like this a lot. I think, again, like this is an album of like weird contrast. I like the Experiment on Saturn Return, and I like both of the ballads. I think this is Stipe in top form for like belting it kind of performance.
Yeah, I think this performance is very good. The lyrics don't do it for me quite as much.
Yeah.
It's very direct in a way that, you know, I've been inconsistent as when I say whether that works for me or doesn't.
It's whatever.
It doesn't. Inconsistency is not a crime.
Yeah, hypocrisy doesn't exist. Yeah.
You know, so this is one of those things where the directness of this doesn't make the lyrics impress me that much. I think the performance is pretty good.
Yeah.
Part of it is, even when I push through it though, like that beat down element colors it. You know, like I just wish this had come up earlier in the sequence, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, I wish this would, you know, swap this out with She Wants to Be or Disappear.
Yep.
You know, put something like this in that first part that's kind of saggy, and put some of that sag and this lending thing, and then cut off the end.
Yeah.
So, like...
And get rid of Summer Turns to High.
Get rid of Summer Turns to High. Like, I would, you know, there's a couple songs I would get rid of, but every song, you know, 20% of.
Yeah.
Definitely get rid of. And that would just make things feel like it's a pacing thing, I guess. So when I listened to this in isolation, like when I was watching the video before we recorded, I was like, oh, like I do actually like this song.
It's very good.
You know, it's just in the context of the album, I don't like it, I guess.
Yeah.
No.
Yep. I'm fine with it. Like maybe it's just because I have learned to skip over Summer Turns to High. And if I'm being honest, like skip over the last, let's say 4 minutes of Disappear. I'm not as beat down. Like my health bar is higher than yours is by the time I get to this.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like my actual, like in my day-to-day listening of Reveal or whatever, I just listened to a couple, you know.
It's just Imitation of Life. Yeah.
It's an Imitation of Life. I actually like Reno. I usually listen to that as well.
Yeah.
You know, and then like now at the very least revisiting this is like, I can add beat a drum to that. I think that's a good song.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't listen to all of it. So it's, I don't get fatigued, you know? But yeah, this is a good song. Kind of a weird choice for a single, I think.
Yeah. They pretty much always do one of these like very overwrought ballads as their as one of their singles, but always very late.
Yeah, and never very successfully.
Right.
Like I think that like, oh, this is a very pretty love song, and that's what, you know, that's the same thing as a pop song.
Right.
You know, but it's kind of different. So it's very hard for me to think this was going to perform like gangbusters as a single.
Yeah.
And then the album ends with Beach Ball.
Yes.
Which is very much
like, this is a song about summer.
Yeah, this is
an album about summer. Yeah.
A summer album. The beginning of this sounds so dorky to me. Like it's not. I don't know what instrument it is. It's like a bass clarinet or something.
It's like a bunch of instruments. Like it's a whole. It's a whole section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing this, it sounds very dorky to me. Yeah.
I hum like I'm surprised, but I don't. This doesn't feel dorky to me, or if it does feel dorky, that dorkiness is to its benefit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is fine to me. It's not my favorite song on the album. I think that interplay between the horns and then ultimately the strings come in, and like the kind of barely chorus that it has, like the outro of "You'll Do Fine," work together very well.
Mm-hmm.
The verses are fine, but they're a little bit too staccato for me, actually.
Yeah.
I pretty much would prefer that they just kind of like luxuriate in the lush instrumentation that they've set up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's a weird conflict, because that kind of that stiffness.
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Dun 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 dun. Like, no, like you set up everything to like really, really flow. I don't know.
Yeah. To be kind of a soft thing. It ends up kind of sounding like a genre exercise to me. A little bit like, let's make some kind of lounge music.
Yeah.
And there's an intention, like it doesn't like it's like a theme first song. Like it was like, let's make something that sounds like summer. Not like, let's make a bunch of songs we want to make and then realize that through the miracle of Providence, there was this guiding principle and this is how they're actually united.
Yeah.
There's an intentionality to this that makes it read a little artificial to me.
Yeah. I was going to throw in artificiality as a marker for this. And
then kind of like a shallowness to the lyrics, which are very simple, like, just about like having
fun on the streets. Yeah.
And like, it's not that like every song has to be strum and drang, but is this worth writing a song about? Like, have you come up with an interesting angle to approach this from?
I like this as a mirror or repetition or echo of Beat a Drum, where that is a person who is very self-possessed and deciding like, hey, this thing that is nice is fine for me. And this is what I am. Compared to this other thing, which is assuring somebody else that like, it is okay to live in this moment. Like they exist well as a pair, but they cover very similar ground. So that's a conflict for me, right?
Yeah. I wasn't thinking of it in terms of, with that other song really. So I can see that pairing. Yeah. On its own, it ends up feeling a little too slight for me.
Yeah.
As a thing to write a song about, but I see your point.
There's some real groaners in this as well, like the lapses into foreign language.
Rumba.
The rumba. Yeah, like that's the way that goes. But like Tessa, hey, Tessa more Shari. Like no, I don't really like dipping into a different language, or also those Che Guevara winks.
Yeah, that doesn't. I don't think that's a thing.
No.
I don't think like it doesn't, that's not a simile or metaphor that describes how somebody winks to me.
No. I'm fine with him like just like listing alcohols as part of that, like blending the language with all that stuff and just like, oh, this sounds like that thing before. But no, the Che Guevara wink, that's nothing.
It's pretty rough. Yeah. And this ends up being with that, like with just the kind of like everything, it's like when you discover Homer's typewriter and he's just saying feeling fine. Like this is like an everything's all right thing. And this is a real good expression of that kind of lack of conflict that like kind of hurts this album to me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like you write a song about a street party because you have nothing else, you have no other bigger problems.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing else you want to say, so it's like, why not just describe a party?
Yeah, taken in a vacuum, I'm fine with this, but as part of a broader whole, and if you're looking at this as a symptom of like something that does make this album lie kind of flat, I can totally agree with you.
Yeah. It ends up being a weird closer to me, because it's not as like, I was expecting something more dramatic.
Yeah.
Like something like I Take the Rain like would make more sense as a closer to me.
For sure. Yeah. Or just feel like a direct pairing between this, like if you have to keep Summer Turns to High, like this would be a better expression of that side of summer if they were trying to explore every single angle of it.
Yep.
And like I'll Take the Rain, like seeds into fall, like there is a passing of the season that happens in that, like end with it. Like don't let this end with complacency. Like there can be heartbreak on top of this. You know, like my story of, you know, getting this, like it's that summer between 7th and 8th grade, and I'm like listening to this on my CD player, my Walkman, you know, like all the way to Myrtle Beach, you know, on a vacation and stuff. And like, you know, I just, it does, like that summariness resonates to me. And we're recording this in the very height of July, you know, as we're doing this, like all of that speaks very well, but there can be less complacency that is brought to that same subject matter that brings out more dimension to this.
I guess that, yeah, I agree with that. Like there's definitely like would have been a way that could have brought that additional complexity. It's also like, if I'm being 100% honest with myself, like the idea of something like a season, you know, tends not to be how I latch on to work or onto art or narratives or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, like it's more about kind of what things are possible to happen during that season.
Yeah.
You know, so like there are things I associate with summer, like TV shows that feel kind of summery, you know, to me, or feel like a season.
We have a show whose tempo is summer JRPGs, you know, because of the way those fit into our lives.
Because, you know, how those fit.
Yeah.
But that's just, it's like, it almost feels like too slight of a thing for an album.
Yeah.
You know, like this isn't just, it's 12 things about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just one.
It's one of those things that outside of this, I very much ascribe, like, hey, this album feels like fall to me. To flashback an episode, like Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot is like the autumn album for me. You know, but that is something that happens afterwards. It is not constructed as a concept.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. And that's part of what I think I'm picking up on. You know, it's not, most albums do have that kind of unifying theme, but it just kind of is achieved organically through where people are at in their lives and what their individual influences are at the moment. It's not like a cart before the horse. Like the Pounce Pony has been put before the Phony Maroni in this case.
Oh, you got me.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that. And I'm not like trying to, you know, super slam on it. Up until that point where I check out, I do have a reasonably good time listening to this album.
Yeah.
Like, it is like,
at least you can acknowledge that there are things to like after you checked out.
Totally. Like there's interesting things. It's just, it is a real good example of where I think it goes back to the discussion we had at the beginning of this, where I think the things that are kind of weaker structurally are actually interfering with me having that kind of like reflection that just skims the best stuff to the top.
Yeah.
You know, because it's even the first time I get to some of the best stuff, I've still experienced the other stuff. So I'm different.
Yeah.
You know, by the time we get to those last 3 songs, like I'm, you know, I don't have that goodwill, you know, so like I'm coming to them differently, and it's harder for them to stand as a vacuum because of the structural weaknesses. And it ends up becoming another thing too, where I feel like the way that you would fix this is so obvious that it kind of drives me nuts.
Yeah. That is a real problem.
Like it's hard for me to imagine the person who loves this album who is just like, yes, like I want I want an hour-long album with 12 songs, all roughly about the same thing. You know, with fairly similar production throughout. You know, that's great, and like keep it coming. Like
you can pick 2 of those.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
like if you introduced a little bit of economy to this, it actually would open up. It would be, I think, a more enduring work than it is. And, you know, like something that's been hanging over this, you know, I talk about this in nostalgic terms, and we talk about kind of coming to this for the show. This doesn't feel essential. This doesn't feel like something that, like, you know, will stand up to the best of the rest of the album, you know, the rest of like R.E.M's work.
The canon.
You know,
if I was trying to get someone into R.E.M. and they said, "Oh, which album should I pick? Should I pick Reveal?" I would like leap across, you know, the room to knock it out of their hands.
Yeah,
you know, like, and that goes again, like, it goes for up to you.
Yeah,
you know, which is I like a little bit more.
Don't have to. I understand. Like, you don't have to do that for my sake. You know, like,
yeah,
I think we have both picked a combatant in this fight, but I don't think either of us would stick through to the end. Like, I wouldn't. It's
us battling our sick Pokemons, like in private, where nobody else could have. Like, no, you shouldn't start with Up. No, you shouldn't start with Reveal. But we're gonna like bang those 2 Bakugan together. One's got a broken leg, and the other one's got missing an eye. And like,
I mean, I think that there is a little bit about this that says, like our preference for one or the other actually says a little bit about us, either when we came up, when we got into REM, like where this kind of fit, like just those autobiographical details, and also kind of aesthetic preferences that we have both kind of hammered over and over again, not just on this show, but just in other stuff in general. Right.
Yeah.
Like there are just differences, but I don't think either of us will choose this particular hill to die on. Yeah.
Yeah. This choose this hill to die on, or would make this the REM ambassador to the world.
No.
It's just, yeah. So inessential is a good way to put it, but you do get some stuff from listening to it. Like it's not a waste of your time.
Yeah.
It's just once you've gotten through everything, like you wouldn't listen to this before you listen to most of the records that came before.
If I had to accept this album as it is in order to get Imitation of Life as it is, that is worthwhile.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't throw everything else out in order to, get something better than that. Right.
No, I wouldn't either. Even though like Imitation of Life sounds like it would be like a real banger, like on Out of Time.
Yeah.
It'd be different production, but like that's a song they could have written then.
Yeah.
So it ends up being not of it, even though it justifies it.
Right.
So your worst is definitely Some Returns to High. What is your favorite song on this album?
Favorite song. So are we jettisoning Imitation of Life?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll do Beat a Drum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beat a Drum is definitely my favorite as well. It's hard for me to think of worse because it's like, I get most annoyed by Beach Ball, but it's not objective. It's because I'm sick of the album by then. So right. I probably would agree with you and say Some Returns to High.
Yeah.
I don't like that lockstep, like sing one note on every note of the instrument.
No.
Thing. Like I think that's, again, it's Yankee Doodle.
Yeah.
Like it's like I'm learning how to play a song on a recorder is what it feels like. Yep.
I don't care if it's intentional. What you were trying to do was not worth doing.
I think so.
Yeah.
Speaking of what you're trying to do is not worth doing, the fan club. So we have 2 years of live stuff on 2001, 2003. 2002 is a video disc of Michael Stipe reading MLK speeches. So I didn't find this because the reason why I couldn't find it is because on YouTube there's another video of him reading MLK speeches just for sport.
Oh boy.
That was not part of the fan club.
Oh man, it's one of those things. I can agree with every reason you would do a thing, but still stop you from doing the thing.
Me not liking that does not mean that I don't like Martin Luther King. It's like I think Martin Luther King is very great.
Only literal monsters would disagree with that sentiment.
Yeah. But it kind of, the fan club is going to come back with songs.
Yeah.
In the next episode, I think, and Wish on a Monkey's Paw, they're Around the Sun style songs, so they're not great, but at least it's more interesting than just the nothing.
Yeah.
We've been going through.
Yeah. So. There's some B-sides for this. Millsy comes back for a cover of a song from Christie. This is Yellow River. This is the 1970s pop surf fascination that Mike Mills has. It's fine. I wish that he would put himself to better stuff.
I just liked hearing him. He's almost uniformly absent in terms of vocals on this whole record.
It's very upsetting. Same with Up, actually.
Yeah, same with Up.
Yeah,
he comes in like the Beach Boys wash of At My Most Beautiful, but there's not that lyric counter lyric thing that is one of the best things about REM that they decided to ditch for no reason.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. So I am happy that he appears.
It's so weird because in Around the Sun, like at least on Leaving New York, which is the only song from Around the Sun I've listened to more than twice, Michael Stipe does it to himself. Like they could have had Mike Mills come in with the thing, but Michael Stipe does like kind of a round on his own.
Yeah, that's incomprehensible.
It's misguided. Yeah, I think that's a good song, but it's a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of live shit, and then another surf instrumental because like fucking REM is out of ideas. You guys used to be so rich.
Well, they've been doing shitty surf stuff since the beginning, though. So
that's true.
Since the very beginning, since White Tornado. But yeah, like we're talking about 165 Hillcrest. Yeah, it's
somebody's address in college.
Yeah.
They decided to make a name. They're actually outtakes again.
Yeah.
Which because they released a version of like this, like a pre-release promotional version that had a slightly different track list with a couple different versions of songs, and then also these 2 extra songs.
Yes.
So Freeform Jazz Jam is not really worth talking about. It's like a 30-second, 45-second nugget.
Yeah, it's what it says on the tin.
Yeah, that's synthesizer stuff. And then there's a song called Fascinating, which is a little bit more interesting.
Little bit.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care for this a lot. Like, it's very in the, it feels like it assembles itself as a Frankenstein's monster from a bunch of different parts of songs on R.E.M. With Summer Turns to High as the primary kind of contributor.
Yeah. Yep. Not particularly good. What's more interesting though is after this came out, they released another best of.
Yes.
They've done eponymous, and it's like, well, it's about time, to do another best of. They put together a CD and a video compilation of all their DVDs, which is cool.
Yep. In Time and In View were the name of those. I had In View. It was a frequent watch in college, I think much to Ben Merkel's chagrin.
Oh, poor Merkel.
he just he didn't care for R.E.M.
Oh, yeah. Well, that would do it.
Yeah.
And then kind of weirdly, they brought back a couple of old songs to re-record.
Yeah.
The most notable one is Bad Day, which used to be a song called Public Service Announcement. That was an outtake from fucking Life Show to Pageant.
Yeah.
But they re-recorded it, and I think it's really good.
Oh, it's so good.
This is a great song.
It descends into just like, hey, let's repeat the chorus forever. Kind of in the same way that, even what End of the World does. But yeah, like, even this version of it is very well done, because I think they went into the studio again with their backing band that are fans, saying, let's record one like the old times.
Yeah. It starts off with that weird little keyboard, like electronic flourishes, and then immediately ditches it. It's like a statement of, we're back, baby. I think the song is really good and catchy.
Yeah. Shit so thick you can stir with a stick.
Yeah.
But like, it's weird that it was politically applicable when it was first written, and then they put it out like at the height of just like, oh, the Bush administration is shitty. So all of this is like, everything old is new again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the video they're on a real run, because this video is charming as fuck.
It is. It's them as a morning news crew.
Yeah, the morning team. And dealing with reporting on people who are having, in the corner it says like small weather. And it's people having localized weather events in like their living room or their work.
Yeah, so they're like, my office is flooding.
Yeah, it's really good. Like, there's a singular tornado in my living room, It's really cute and cool, and like they all lip sync. So they do the news team like pass it off.
Yeah.
So like
pressing into their ear, like waiting for this, and then they point, and then it goes over to the other person delivering the line. Yeah, it's
really good.
Yeah,
I love it. And it came out as a single, and there's a B-side for it, which is a cover of, this is a indie band from the 90s who did this song.
Oh, geez, I didn't realize that. This is a very good song.
It's super good. I was like, man, I got to listen to that. I got to find that band. It's like Magna Pop, I think is the name of the band.
Magna Pop is great.
This is a
covers of them.
Song.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They're like a 90s. The Eels did. They did a cover of Open the Door. Which is another Magna Pop song. Yeah, Magna Pop is like the 90s. Yeah.
Linda Hopper was the main lady in that, who was Athens.
Yeah.
She was in the Athens music scene, and then they came back as an indie band.
Nice.
So this is great though. I got to listen to some Magna Pop, man.
Yeah. No. Go for it. It's it is very 90s in that kind of like Poe, I'm a very serious woman singing about serious stuff kind of way. But like, this is I've never heard the original song, but this is a good treatment of that.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It was a last minute addition. I forgot that it was there.
Yeah.
Because it didn't occur to me that they would release a single from the greatest hits. So
right.
Almost missed it. And then the other new song from that is a song called Animal. Which
it's fine.
Yeah, Animal's fine. There's a video for this too. This was also a single, but it's not nearly as fun and good as Bad Day, I think.
No. I think that I don't know if this is going to be controversial. The ratio of Stipe to other members of the band, I think, directly correlates to how good the video is going to be. Because this video is all Stipe all the time. It's him in a dystopia where all energy is light.
That's definitely what happens. It looks like a Moby video to me.
Yeah.
Like this could have happened to Moby. And as damning as that is how I intend it. Like, it's also, I guess I had read that this was another old song they dusted off, but now I'm not seeing reference to that. So this could not be,
right,
a Bad Day era song, because I feel like we would have run into it on our way here.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what the origins of this are. It's weird if this was just a brand new song, though, because right after this is Around the Sun.
Right. Or if this was a cast off from Reveal. Like, there is nothing with this much tooth, on Reveal.
Yeah. But yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
So, but the best of, which I bought on its own just to get these 2 new songs, at the time, it justifies itself with Bad Day, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a greatest hits. Mm-hmm. It's a solid compilation for sure.
Yeah, and they worked on it. Like, there were like liner notes and stuff to all that. Like, they dedicated time out of their schedule, which is a weird thing to say about a work, especially at greatest hits. But like, they made it worth a purist going in and saying like, yes, there was care put into this product.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I think that's about it for Reveal. It's always lightest before the dark. It's always dawnest before the dark. As we'll see you in 2 weeks to talk about Around the Sun. Don't talk to me or my Around the Sun ever again.
I think that what was it I said? I'm going to have to lash myself to the bow in order to listen to this. We're not turning back, baby.
Yep, I'm gonna lay in the dark and I'm gonna take a bunch of caffeine pills, close my eyes in the dark, and listen to it.
Yeah.
So no sleeping, but no other. Like, if I'm on my computer, I will immediately forget all these songs.
Oh yeah.
But I listened to it again. It was bad, but maybe the fact that I'm so built up for it, maybe there'll be something worthwhile.
There are going to be moments. There are going to be moments where it's like, there is the hint of a good idea or a good decision that could have been the kernel of a better song than they decided to write.
Yeah,
that is my my firm stance.
It's a safe prediction, and also I like the single. I like Leaving New York.
Yeah. Talk to Brayton and see if he wants to get on the Q-Tip song.
Just the Brayton guest spot on just dumb Q-Tip song. I also am looking forward to reading the book part of it, because it's like,
what were you thinking?
Well, and what do they think? Did they?
Oh no,
they
think it's a nightmare. Like they decided like, if we would rather break up than make another album like this. Like, why they decided to even release it, if they felt that way, is kind of a mystery. I want to find out. But no, like they specifically, they're not.
They don't stand behind it. Good. Yeah. That's my boys. I cannot imagine a universe in which Mike Mills goes to bat for Around the Sun.
No. In fact,
there's too much integrity in that man.
Yeah. After they started developing songs for Up, like any song off of Around the Sun, even Leaving New York, fell off of their live sets. They just pretended it didn't exist in a much harder and more insistent way than like even ignoring Shiny Happy People.
Yeah. Yep. Anywho, look forward to that.
Yes.
If you like this show, the best thing you can do is support us by going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Mm-hmm. Check out our rewards, check out our goals, and just kind of check out, get episodes a week early. A lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you there if you're able to. It makes a big difference, even a little bit of money. So, the price of one R.E.M. album per year will make a huge difference to us.
Very much so. If you like this show and you want to share it with some friends, even though we're going to end after what looks like episode 20, I think, it's going to stay up and available. So, we intend for this to stick around as a, kind of consistently available work. So it is not too late to go and tell people about these two guys who talked about all of the R.E.M. there was.
Yes. Yeah. It'll stick around like bonfire. It is the bonfire side chat of R.E.Ms. You can also rate and review, tell your friends, things like that.
Yeah.
All super useful. Yeah.
Yep. I can't think of anything else.
So until next time, it is the end of the podcast as we know it.
And we feel fine. Somebody stop us from doing Around the Sun.
None
of us want that.
Yeah, assassinate our computers.